Good afternoon, Wrestling Inc. Get up, get going. Welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily. It's me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nick Hausman, joined here with a very special Tuesday co-host. You probably saw him in WWE. He's a veteran of WWE TV. He was known as Mojo Rawley then, but today he's going to be talking all the news in the past 72 hours in the world of professional wrestling with me. It's Dean Muhtadi. Dean, welcome to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
My man, hyped up to be here, baby. Let's do it. First time on the show. I'm loving it.
Yeah, dude. We're going to have a great time. I like it. So you still embrace the hyped mentality, even like now that WWE's done, you still like saying you're hyped and all that all the time?
That's what I do, man. I had that mantra long before I got to WWE. It'll be with me long afterwards. I own the trademark on it. So, baby, I don't get hyped. I stay hyped. That's how I live.
I love it. Well, guys, we got a great show here today. We're going to talk all the news from the past 72 hours. Obviously, yesterday I was not here. I'm here in California at the moment, which is why I sound weird. I look weird. I will be back in my home studio next week. But I didn't want to stop the show. We got to keep the show rolling. So here we are. We're going to be talking news here today with Dean. After the news block here later on, you're going to get to hear in audio form, if you're listening with a podcast form, the full audio from Tony Khan's AEW Media Scrum. You can hear me literally break Tony Khan's brain at about 2 o'clock in the morning as I really just hammer him about Ring of Honor's distribution deal. I don't really think, Dean, I don't know if you've seen this or heard this. I don't think you have. But I was all over TK like a pack of dogs on a three-legged cat. And I don't think that he wanted me to be really hammering him about, like, what is Ring of Honor going to be? How is it going to be distributed? I don't think he wanted to say all that stuff, but I wanted to force him to say it, Dean.
Well, that's what you got to do, man. Private information. I mean, look, that's going to be a deal that's going to last a very long time, and I'm sure he wants to kind of keep us abreast on that in segments and installments. But I know we're all kind of itching from the start, from the get-go, right from the initial announcement to see what exactly that's going to entail and how that's going to affect the wrestling world moving forward. And I'm definitely one of those people that want to know what that's going to be about.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, we're going to talk all about ROH. I got a bunch of details about that coming up in the news block as well. But, of course, full audio here later on if you're listening to a podcast form. If you're watching us in video form, right after Dean and I are done here today, you can go over to the Wrestling Inc. YouTube channel. We got the full video up from the AEW Media Scrum. You got Tony, Punk, Hangman Page, others. We're going to roll that audio out here throughout the rest of the week as well. And then at the end of the show, we're going to dive into the mailbag. We're going to look at Jeff Hardy's what seems to be impending AEW debut tomorrow night on Dynamite. But without further ado, let's get to it here, Dean. It's your first time at the rodeo. Time for news you can use. News that'll leave a bruise. And Dean, yeah, thank you. I say a lot of dumb things that I'm trying to get over here. I really could use the support, so thank you.
I say a lot of dumb things myself, so I'm glad I'm in good company. Let's see who says the dumbest thing today. We'll make a competition out of it.
And by the way, I want to thank everybody who's jumping into the oh man, I want to thank everybody for jumping to the comment section. I'm sorry if our audio is not quite great here today. I'm going to do my best to figure it out this week. I definitely wanted to get Dean on here. I'm not giving you my best here today, Dean, tech-wise. I'm trying my best, but we'll try to get through it here today, and hopefully have you back next week. We can do a little bit different version of this. But I want to start off here today talking about AEW Revolution. It was this past weekend. I was there at the show live on Sunday, obviously, and this was their first $1 million gate. Dean, what do you think about the momentum AEW has right now? I know that AEW Revolution was a big show for them, $1 million at the gate. Looks like they're going to do a lot of big buy rates. Are you surprised to hear all of these big numbers coming out of AEW at the moment?
No, not one bit. I mean, shoot, $1 million. That's this is a hell of an accomplishment, man. This is big news. I mean, to go out there and generate that much, obviously it's a reflection on the brand and how everything's going. And honestly, I think this is just the beginning. I think now that they finally cracked that threshold, this is something that's just going to continue to have. I mean, it's crazy to think with how much power it's had in the discussion, of late, like how new AEW still is. I mean, everyone always wants to talk about, WWF, WCW back in the day and the similarities between now that competition between WWE and AEW. But, obviously that went for a long time. This is still brand new, and it just blows my mind when you think about how fast they've come so quickly. And, as a guy that just spent the past 10 years with the WWE, man, I mean, you hear it from the talent. It's no secret. Just having another place that you can go and you can compete competitively, kind of breaking up more or less what seemed to be a monopoly in the industry in just so many respects. I mean, this has just been huge. Loving how different the product is, everything they're doing with the talent over the way they protected the talent, giving them freedom to really grow in and out of the ring. It's just been absolutely huge. So, I mean, everybody's rooting for them. Nobody wants to, see them go under. I don't see that happening at all, but everyone wants to see them continue on this upswing, and it's just helping out the whole industry, and it's just beautiful to see. And I just think this is just the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. And, it was a really great pay-per-view too. A lot of people saying top to bottom, one of the best shows they've ever done. I mean, if you go over to Cage Match, which is really the barometer for the success of pro wrestling, they gave it like a 9.2, which I think is, fair rating for it. It was a really great show. I think the match that everybody's really talking about coming out of that show, though, is the dog collar match between MJF and CM Punk. Really brutal affair. Saw a lot of throwback stuff there with CM Punk wearing his old Ring of Honor gear, coming out to his old Ring of Honor theme song. I caught a little Easter egg, too, where, like, before the match, MJF was sitting like Raven down in the corner, which was a callback to Punk and Raven's obvious infamous ROH dog collar match from back in the day. So a lot of great Easter eggs there. And the culmination of that match was really Wardlow coming out and turning on MJF finally. The fans have really wanted to see that for a long time. And MJF was calling for that Dynamite Diamond ring to knock out Punk one more time. And Wardlow acted like he didn't have it. But as soon as Punk had control, it seems like Wardlow found it, handed off to Punk. Punk was able to knock MJF with this thing and win the match. And now it looks like Wardlow has finally turned on MJF, man. This is a really great time for him. Talk about making stars. AEW really has something there with Wardlow, and it's great to see him finally break away from MJF, and I'm excited to see what this rocket ride looks like for this guy following this match.
Yeah, I mean, this is something you can just pray for when you're a wrestler, man. You finally get the opportunity to take the ball and run with it. There's a lot of guys out there, and I'm not saying this specifically for Wardlow and MJF, but sometimes when you dream of this big debut and this big launch, you envision yourself kind of coming in solo and having like this tremendous title run. It isn't always the case. Sometimes you get put with a group, maybe you prefer it, maybe you don't, but a lot of times, the success kind of gets attributed to the group or the lead guy in charge, the more veteran guy in the group. So it's very easy for people to look at someone like Wardlow and really not give him his due. But now that he's broken off and he has a chance to do his own thing, I mean, this is really where the fun starts. And, as a talent, you really get to test yourself, see where you stand, see how you can handle standing alone, and just see what you can bring to the table. Exciting new elements now with less restrictions, less rules, and it's all on you. So if I'm him, I'm fired up right now. I'd be primed for the time of my career,
Yeah, man. I mean, it's got to be frustrating, right? Like from your end, watching a guy like Wardlow get a really long story like that actually like pays off in a meaningful way. And you're like, wow, I can already kind of write that 6 months in my head. I'm sure that was something you could relate to with your time in WWE, because I think a lot of fans that were really like invested in you and liked you noticed that like, yeah, you started a lot of stuff that didn't really seem to like get a culmination kind of moment, right? That's got to be frustrating.
Yeah. Definitely, to say the least. And you never know how to prepare, man. I can't control how the pen works. I can't control the script, the gimmick I'm going to be given, what I'm going to be saying, doing, how I'm even going to be wrestling on TV. For me, it was like, look, I'm just going to work my ass off, and whatever shakes of it, I'll run with it. For me, it was always the second after we finished a loop, I'd fly on a red eye home on no sleep, go straight to the PC, try and break all the records in the weight room, go straight into the rings, do the extra practices with the NXT guys, and do everything I can. I was formally writing up and submitting pitches very frequently in a very professional way. I really wanted people to see, even if they didn't like the pitch, like, man, this guy is doing everything he can. We got to keep an ear out, for something that'll work. But it just seemed like, yeah, man, I get like a little run. They give me a little character wrinkle, and then before I could even sink my teeth into it, before I could get into a program, a storyline, a series, more than one match with the same guy, the thing was over. So it's like you just don't know how to prepare. There really isn't much you can do. You can show up and be in shape and be ready to do your thing. But if you don't get your due, it's there's nothing you can do. There's nothing for the fans to get behind. So yeah, bro, it's frustrating to say the least.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, like I said, Wardlow right now on a great run. Not only did he get the big turn on MJF, also won the Face the Revolution ladder match. He's going to get a TNT title match here in the future. That was a really brutal bout, by the way, for anybody who's worried about Orange Cassidy coming out of that one. It sounds like, according to the Observer, he did suffer an injury to the shoulder. He got tossed over the top rope to the outside by Keith Lee and overshot the guys on the outside and fell to the ground, which is really painful.
Yeah.
I hope he's all right. So outside of the Wardlow stuff, of course, there was the main event. Hangman Adam Page retained over Adam Cole. I thought it was probably the best Hangman Page outing in a little while. I thought the stuff with Bryan was good, but Bryan is just outclassing everybody else right now, man. It's really hard to hang in there with Bryan and shine against a guy like that. But I thought with Adam Cole, Adam Cole did a great job making him look good. The fans were definitely there for him. No title changes on this show whatsoever. So looks like the momentum for Hangman Page is going to keep going on. I don't know if you have any opinions about how Hangman has been at the top of the card right now in AEW, Dean.
Well, it just seems like it's been received very positively. So it's good to see, man. Hey, I mean, it's a stressful part being at the top for quite some time and, defending, not only yourself, but kind of representing the brand as a whole. So I think he's been doing a great job. And obviously the pay-per-view was received very well. So hey, good for him.
Yeah, great pay-per-view. Like I said, a couple big debuts on the show too. We had Shane Swerve Strickland finally make his AEW debut, did a big interview segment with Tony Schiavone. And we got William Regal, man. William Regal now officially All Elite. He debuted at the end of the Jon Moxley Bryan Danielson match. It was kind of a weird finish where Bryan didn't know he was getting pinned and losing the match, and there was a pushing situation with him and Moxley, and out comes Regal, pulls them apart, slaps them both in the face. Now Regal's in the mix over at All Elite. And one of the things about Regal joining AEW, I guess I'll kind of start to tie this into kind of some of Tony's comments from the media scrums afterwards. I was really, like I said, hammering Tony about Ring of Honor and really wanted to know, what are we going to get out of ROH? And he was coy for a while, but towards the end, he started saying more, I think, than he wanted. And what I got the vibe from him was that he's going to be creating a developmental system for AEW with Ring of Honor. It'll still be its own separate brand that he's booking, but he went out of his way to poll the press, say, which NXT did you guys like better, NXT 1 or NXT 2.0? And we're all like 1. And he goes, well, 2.0, that's a show that creates wrestlers that are good for Vince McMahon's model. Kind of implying, I think he's going to do a show more like the original NXT with Ring of Honor, which produced a lot of talent that obviously he's using on his show right now, like Adam Cole. And I wonder, with Regal in the mix, Bryan there, Samoa Joe kind of in the wings. I mean, Regal works so well as that authority role down in NXT. I mean, if he's the authority figure for Ring of Honor and you're really going to go for that hardcore NXT vibe, I think the fans might actually be there for that. I don't know how you feel about that, Dean.
Yeah, absolutely. Regal just makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously his work with NXT is well documented, well received. But I mean, the power that he brought behind the scenes was just immeasurable. I mean, he really was coaching guys up. I mean, he was running promo classes for us in NXT, really coaching us up on the best ways to cut a promo, helping everybody hone their characters, helping with the in-ring side of it too. I mean, he was always around at the Performance Center, literally helping guys with anything that they could possibly ask for. And he was putting in extra time in doing so. When you're talking about the acquisition of William Regal, you're not only talking about the on-air side, you're talking about the behind-the-scenes element of it too, which might be more important. So if ROH is essentially going to become the developmental of AEW, there's just so many different ways he can help out the brand. And, to your comments on NXT 1.0 and NXT 2.0, I always try to look at these things from, a company standpoint, because I know it can be easy to vote on, what's more popular to you, what you want to see as a fan. But when you're trying to think of, running a business, it gets to be really tricky, because the problem with NXT 1.0, if that's what we're calling it, was its own success. It just became more and more successful. So if at its core, NXT is supposed to be a developmental, there's really no spot for developmental characters there, you know, and especially talking as a guy that came, you know, not from a wrestling background, that came in from football. You can't expect in 3 to 6 months a guy to come in off the street and be able to compete from a technical standpoint, you know, with guys that have been doing this for 10, 12 years. I mean, maybe from a character standpoint, they can certainly hold their own, but you know, that was kind of becoming a problem with NXT 1.0, was that they had all these career guys and there really wasn't any room for upward mobility. There, it was its own brand and it was so powerful, and it was, trust me, a great place to be. I mean, it was just very successful in a different product, but I think that's what kind of caused this shift to 2.0, was to have Vince kind of check the whole system. Like, I don't have any place for these, you know, 5-star recruits that I'm bringing in from other walks of life. You know, we just signed an Olympic gold medalist. What are we really supposed to do with that guy in a hurry? It's going to take him a long time to learn to do what we do. And I think, you know, things like that is why that caused a shift, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And like, I'm going to bring up a comment here from Daniel here. He says it's insulting to Ring of Honor and all the people that work to try to make a viable competitor to make it a developmental promotion for AEW. And I don't see it as like a bad thing to make Ring of Honor developmental for AEW. AEW is the number 2 in the room, right? And any path you can kind of latch yourself to get there is going to be great. And to your point, like, you say there's a lot of career guys that were NXT 1.0, and there wasn't a lot of room for, like, you know, the Gable Stevensons or the Grayson Wallers, the guys that Vince was trying to work in to get through that, right? But at the same token, like, I think a lot of fans would say, well, why weren't you just bringing up these really qualified wrestlers faster to your main roster? Why weren't you taking what worked with a Killer Cross or a Keith Lee and just doing it on the main roster, right? There was a real disconnect there. With Tony Khan, like, it's going to be different. You know, you're going to see career guys or hot indie stars, I think, come into Ring of Honor, get a great run, and then when they transition to AEW after a, you know, period of time, you're going to see who you saw in Ring of Honor in AEW. There's not going to be some weird disconnect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess what I would say to Daniel is, I mean, I know the second you hear the word developmental, it's just kind of, you know, become an insult. But if that's what you want to call it, so be it. But if they're trying to use ROH as, you know, their version of NXT, I mean, there was a lot of stars in NXT that people love. There's a lot of people out there that prefer NXT over Raw and SmackDown. It's just a different brand. So, you know, if that's the vibe, it's just going to be a completely different show. And I don't see anything wrong with that. You're trying to capture slightly different audiences and create different shows that actually have some differences among them, because a lot of times it's easy for all these wrestling shows to kind of become the same, you know, if they're all written the same way with the same class of talent. If you're at least breaking it up, you know, it's allowing for something different. So, you know, and there's no way around it. I mean, sure, if you want to talk about AEW, you got like Moxley and Bryan Danielson, some of these like people that are like top-notch guys. It might take some of these guys that are the top guys in ROH or these top guys in NXT a little bit to get to their level. It doesn't mean that they don't have anything to offer now and they can't go out there and put on a hell of a show. Maybe even go out there and have a one-off that is better than the match that some of those top guys had on the top brands. But, you know, by breaking it up, you're just allowing for a different product. So you really have to separate yourself from taking, you know, developmental as an insult.
Yeah, for sure. I agree wholeheartedly with that. And real quick, before we jump over to some WWE talk, a couple things I wanted to bring up also from AEW Revolution. Obviously, Britt Baker defeated Thunder Rosa to retain the AEW Women's title. The only reason I really mentioned this was because they debuted a new AEW Women's title that looks really, really nice. I suggest everybody go check it out. I think it looks a lot nicer than the original Women's title. And of course, House of Black defeated Death Triangle on the buy-in. And that was a banger. Probably should have been on the main show, honestly. A lot of big men in there, a lot of great workers. Malachi Black, Pac were awesome to watch them square off. Penta and Buddy Matthews. But of course, the big men, Brody King and Eric Redbeard, I think really stole this match. A lot of people super impressed seeing guys that big moving the way they do, you know?
Look, Eric Redbeard, man, like you see that guy on TV and he looks plenty big. When you see him in person, he's just one of those few guys that's actually bigger on person. You know, a lot of times you see these wrestlers, You're like, man, that dude looks huge. That guy's jacked on TV. And then you meet him in person. You're like, dude, this guy's my size. You know, I'm bigger than this guy. You see Redbeard, man, it is the exact opposite. I'm very happy for him as a friend personally to see what he's been doing, to go out there and absolutely kill it. I mean, that guy's kind of had a career that was all over the place. I just think he was just so underrated, you know, an underrated part of, you know, the Wyatt family and everything that he's done. So it's good to see him in a position to kind of shine and offer up what he can do on his own. You know, I know this was, of course, it wasn't a singles match, but you can go out there apart from the groups that you're normally attached to and show that you can kind of do the dance with anybody out there. So I'm very happy to see that.
Yeah, totally, man. And like huge crowd reaction. The fans very, very much into Eric Redbeard. Well, over on the other side of the coin, over in WWE world, Madison Square Garden hosted a big WWE show on Saturday night. The tease going into this is that Brock Lesnar was going to defend the WWE title, maybe against Bobby Lashley, but if Bobby couldn't compete because of injury, which he wound up not being able to do, there was going to be suitable competition for Brock Lesnar. And a lot of fans were running wild with speculation. Cody Rhodes was the big one fans thought might be the one to step up and take on Brock. You know, I have no idea how that would have gone. The Observer saying that as of this past Friday's edition of SmackDown, Cody was actually on the internal books with creative being ready for him to return. However, now more uncertainty around his future with WWE. With the situation with Cody and WWE, it's not considered over. It's a case of waiting and seeing how things play out, as they say. Fightful just put out another report as well, saying that they couldn't get any clarification. And I've been asking around too. I don't really know what Cody's future looks like in pro wrestling, but they're saying that we should expect to see some kind of Vanity Fair or Esquire piece soon on Cody now that's going to give us some clarity on his future. So before we get to this Brock Lesnar mystery opponent, what are your thoughts on kind of the current state of Cody Rhodes at the moment, Dean?
Man, I have tremendous respect for Cody Rhodes. Actually, I think my first ever main roster match, like a live event, I think was with Cody. We did like a tag or a 6-man or something. He was great to work with, by the way. But just look, the way he's been able to pioneer and just kind of be a first mover in the wrestling world after WWE, kind of showing just everyone out there, talent included, that you can be successful outside of WWE was really monumental, especially now with how many mass firings there have been. He just went to show like what you can do outside. I mean, he tore it up on the indies for a long time, made a lot of money, booked a lot of shows, made a huge impact. And then, being at the forefront of starting AEW, I mean, goodness, there's so many people that should be thankful to him for that. Regardless of what you have to say about, his involvement and his, continued involvement. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not out of that situation. I have no idea how the preliminary talks were for that. But I mean, I think everyone in the wrestling business has at least a small thank you for Cody for everything he did. I can't imagine what exactly happened there that, forced his hand to leave. I mean, I think that's a really good story to tell, and I want to make sure it comes from the right place. I've tried not to read too far into it. I know that's what everybody wants to see. Everyone wants to know, when's Cody's first match after AEW going to be? Where's it going to be? What's going to happen? What all the specific nitty gritty. I would just say, guys, just be a little patient. Like, let this come to us. I want to enjoy this moment. And if I'm WWE, hell yeah, I'm going to throw up the scent in every possible way. I'd be leaking fake reports. Oh, my goodness. I'd be leaking fake report after fake report because, dude, everyone finds out everything in wrestling before it happens, it seems like. How often are we legitimately surprised? Like, dude, even like a Royal Rumble or something, when someone comes out and they're supposed to be the surprise of the show, everybody's already waiting for it. They're expecting it. They know what's coming. It just... I mean, we get hyped nonetheless, but it still takes a little something off of it. So I'm hoping whatever does happen, I hope it comes out of the blue and it's a surprise. But either way, I know it's something that everybody's excited for. Let's get
dark. Yeah, for sure. I love it, dude. I agree with you, man. I think it should be. I agree. I want it to be a surprise, and I love how you're just embracing, like, lie to the Sheets, lie to Hausman, lie to Meltzer, tell them all whatever they want to hear, right? Keep it a surprise. I think it's a good idea. Austin Theory wound up being the big mystery opponent for Brock Lesnar at Madison Square Garden. And universally fans seem to be pretty let down by that decision. But in general, it seems like WWE really behind Austin Theory at the moment, right? Put him in this position to main event Madison Square Garden against Brock Lesnar. There were some shenanigans after the match, which we can talk about here in just a second. But he's also now going to take on Pat McAfee, it looks like, at WrestleMania, confronted Pat on SmackDown this past Friday night. The Observer saying Vince had been rumored to take on Pat McAfee. He's still going to be a part of the angle, obviously unknown if it's going to be like a handicap match or if he's just going to be ringside. But according to the Observer, he's still seen as a key part of this match between Austin Theory and Pat McAfee. But yeah, dude, Austin Theory, man, another guy kind of like Wardlow over in AEW, just got the rocket attached to him right now. Big opportunities here with him and Brock and Pat McAfee, dude, within just a couple hours of each other.
You know, I'm trying to think of someone in recent memory that's come kind of new to the scene and got a bigger rocket than this. And
yeah,
I'm just failing to do so. I mean, you're doing segments every week with Vince himself. You know, that just speaks volumes right away as to what they see this guy's future looking at. I mean, MSG shows, live events, even non-televised, they're bigger than pay-per-views. Don't get it twisted, you know, like being able to have a match at the Garden is huge. I mean, one of my favorite moments in my career, I had a match with Bobby Roode at the Garden, a singles match with me up, and it was one of the most special matches of my career, and it was not even on TV. It was just a very special day for me. One of the most hyped I've ever been in the ring, certainly top 3 in my career. Of course, that's the hype guy. But
I like the hypometer, by the way. I'll work on getting us a nice graphic on a hypometer. That's fine. I can do that.
I wanted that on my entrance actually when I was doing the hype thing, to have a hype meter, and we just didn't get to it. But I really pitched that one hard. But yeah, if you're Austin Theory going over there and main eventing with Brock Lesnar of all people, I mean, you're talking now, and then of course with Pat McAfee, you're talking about people that are household names that are synonymous with the WWE on that same level as a brand. For people that no longer watch professional wrestling, they know exactly who these 3 people are. Arguably the 3 biggest names, you know, at least 3 of the biggest names in the entire company, and you're getting to work with all of them within a matter of weeks. This is huge. And I mean, just the appeal that Pat McAfee's got in, I mean, what a power acquisition in every sense of the word, you know, for WWE, the amount of eyes he's bringing in, getting people to tune back into wrestling that stopped. That's something that I always try to look at. I mean, yeah, like I said, there's no bigger rocket you could pretty much put on this guy's back.
Yeah, for sure, man. I agree. And like, look, he's obviously got something, man, right? You know, he's a very good wrestler, and he's not afraid to take chances. I don't know if you saw the F5 he took from Brock Lesnar off the top of the Elimination Chamber pod, but that is it takes some balls to go over there and let Brock toss you from like 15 feet in the air. So anyway,
hey, you get that push, you gotta put out some maneuvers like that, brother. You're gonna have to take some bumps. You're getting the rocket. Doesn't come easy.
Well, also, so back at MSG, after the match with Austin Theory, which Austin did not win, obviously, Roman Reigns, the Usos hit the ring. Bloody the Beast Brock Lesnar, lay him out in the middle of the ring. They bring the steel steps into the ring, and Roman Reigns hits a rock bottom on Brock Lesnar, stands on top of him dominantly to end the big Madison Square Garden show. You know, I thought it was a foregone conclusion that Roman Reigns was going to roll through Brock Lesnar here, maybe hold the title, go on to take on Rock next year. It's a lot of time to fill, but they're really behind this guy. I don't know about you, man, but as I've been watching recently with the amount of like heat Roman is getting on Brock, I mean, he's beating him down. He's getting the best of him, I feel like, on a pretty regular basis these days. I'm starting to think that babyface Brock Lesnar is somebody that WWE really likes and may actually beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania this year. I don't know how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I mean, the run that Roman's on is incredible. I don't think there's anyone out there that's not saying this isn't the best, you know, work he's done in his entire career, which is, of course, saying a lot. I mean, Roman's the guy right now, and you know, they've been really in need of like kind of that next big figure, you know, after like a Cena and The Rock and Stone Cold and all these guys, like they've been wanting Roman to be it. And I mean, he has really come into his own. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see how this match with Brock is going to go. Honestly, I'd love to see, Roman hold on to this thing and pull out the dub. I'd love to see it continue. I don't know what everybody else out there is rooting for. I tend to have my own opinions on these things and stand alone sometimes, but I just love the fact that he's risen to a point that you go in there with the Brock and you legitimately see two guys standing toe to toe, looking eye to eye that are kind of on the same level here. That he's built his brand to this point where now it's just so much better than any prior matchups in the past. I mean, this is kind of the best matchup we've had out of these two ever.
Yeah, no, 100%. And a couple other things here going into Mania. Sami Zayn, no longer Intercontinental Champion. Ricochet beat him on SmackDown. Now it looks like maybe we're going to see Johnny Knoxville that cost Sami Zayn the match here. Maybe we'll get some Knoxville Sami Zayn match at WrestleMania, not for the title, which would probably be for the best because, you would think Johnny Knoxville is going to beat Sami Zayn. But do you really want to put the Intercontinental Championship on Johnny Knoxville? I think that's the question they ask themselves here, Dean.
All I can think about right now before we even talk about titles, my goodness, if you're Johnny Knoxville and you have this reputation for jackass of absolutely kicking your own ass, all these crazy stunts where you get annihilated and now you're coming into the WWE, what kind of spots do you have to run to live up to your own reputation? I mean, shoot, we've seen some crazy, crazy things with Shane McMahon and Mick Foley over the years. I'm Johnny Knoxville, and that's my reputation. I'm going to feel like I'm going to have to come in and compete with those kind of spots. And frankly, I don't want to be that guy. I might die, I can't imagine what's going through his head and what kind of spots he's going to take and what kind of match he might put out. And I'd love to see where that goes. As far as your question as to, do you put the IC title on him? I'm going to say no.
Right. Yes.
I think that could be a great spot for the 24/7 title. I think he's perfect for that. I mean, look, the reason you put a title on a guy like Johnny is to, get the mainstream attention, to get all the mainstream markets that necessarily don't cover wrestling and don't watch wrestling every week talking and bring more eyes to the product, kind of increasing your viewership and your fan base and things like that. That is 100% the only reason you book that way. I don't know. I feel like with Johnny's involvement to date, I don't think they necessarily need to put the title on him. The IC title is a big one, man. The history, the prestige behind it. I don't know how that will be received if they put that one on Johnny Knoxville. The U.S. title would be maybe a little better. Of course, I think the 24/7 title is the one you give to him. But yeah, I don't know about that one. I wouldn't do that.
Well, real quickly here, since we're a little short on time here today, I will point out that, yes, Kevin Owens was on Monday Night Raw. He called out Stone Cold Steve Austin for a big KO show at WrestleMania. Steve's accepted. So, unfortunately, Dean, it doesn't look like we're going to get Steve Austin another match, right? Very upsetting. So,
well, we'll see. It's still early.
That's true. That's true. And, of course, lastly here going into WrestleMania weekend, Vader officially announced for the 2022 WWE Hall of Fame class. He's going to go in alongside Undertaker and likely other entrants as well. Overdue, man. How is Vader not in the Hall of Fame already? I think it's a lot of fans are asking right now.
Completely agree. Hey, better late than never. Glad he's going in. I remember, I think it was like my first couple months at FCW back in 2012 when I first signed with WWE. Vader came down and coached. He was a guest coach for like a week, and he ran a special big man class with a small group of us. And man, being able to be trained by him was just incredible. And especially coming in with, a football background. He came in with a football background. I mean, wrestling is not an easy business to crack into and understand for a new guy. So he was really able to kind of speak a language that made sense to me and really escalated my game, man. I was so grateful for that week. I was yearning for more. Man, I was hoping he was going to come around full time and be with us every week. Just the amount of wisdom he shared with us was incredible on how to work, how to carry yourself. very special week. He holds a very special place in my heart. Very awesome to see that he's being inducted. It's awesome to see the reception he's getting everywhere too.
Awesome. Hey, Dean, I want to thank you for joining me at the top of the show to talk all the news today. Love that Vader story. That had to be awesome.
Awesome.
And dude, yeah, that had to be awesome. And of course, I want to thank Tony Khan and AEW for the access at the scrums. We're going to be running out more audio from the scrums here on the daily throughout the week. Of course, if you want to jump over to our YouTube channel, it's all up there right now. Let's dive into the mailbag here real fast to close up the show here today. I put the poll question up over at Wink Daily, WINC Daily. That's the account to follow if you want to vote in our daily polls. Today, I wanted to talk to you all about Jeff Hardy. There was a report coming out of Fightful that Jeff is going to be all elite very, very soon. His first TV appearance is going to come as soon as tomorrow night's Dynamite, because, of course, tomorrow is when his WWE non-compete comes up. He is scheduled to be at the arena. It's not a guarantee he'll be on Dynamite tomorrow, but, man, I mean, these debuts don't stop coming in AEW, man. I mean, like I said earlier, we had Swerve, we had Regal, and now maybe Jeff Hardy tomorrow night. Do you, Dean, worry about AEW burning out fans on these debuts? Like, if you can't keep that pace or you keep this pace going at this speed, do you think that it loses oomph? Do you think you risk burning the fans out? How do you feel about all these big debuts happening so on top of each other right now in AEW?
The fresh faces are always a bonus. Anytime you can do a debut, it just gives a huge boost to the show. Everyone is debating online who it's going to be. Everyone's talking about your product, which is always a good thing. I worry less about these debuts having the power and the big pop that they always want. I worry more about overstacking your roster to the point where it's not really manageable, that these guys that debuted just a month ago are already lost in the shuffle. Because there's too many guys. I think there's always a way to creatively come up with a way to get everyone on TV, even if it's in limited situations. Of course, not everybody can come in and challenge for a title right away, which is, of course, something that the fans always kind of want to see. They want to see a guy come in and just have this crazy debut that's going to lead to something substantial right away. Not always the case. So you kind of got to manage expectations there for the talent, but also mainly, I would say, the talent coming in, manage expectations for the fans, but the talent coming in really needs to manage their expectations too onto, what kind of run they're having. Everyone always wants to look for greener pastures, switching from brand to brand, going to other promotions, thinking it's going to be a lot better. And that's certainly the goal. It's not always, the case. So I worry about that a little bit more, but in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy every single one of these things as they're coming, as I should.
Yeah, for sure. So Jeff Hardy here maybe tomorrow night brings about a poll question today. Who do you guys want to see the Hardy Boys wrestle the most when they reunite here in AEW? About 100 votes here in the last hour. 50% of the votes go to the Young Bucks, 29% to FTR, 14.5% to Jurassic Express, 7.3% to everybody else. I mean, look, it's no secret AEW has a really deep roster when it comes to the tag division. I mean, is there really a dream match for you personally? Is there anybody over in AEW land you'd really like to see the Hardys mix it up with, team?
Probably the Jurassic Express, man. I mean, I think that would be a fresh rivalry, something cool. I think the spots that those four could come up with would be incredible. Of course, they just had a fantastic showing. I think that would be my pick.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think it would be nice to throw a big man like Luchasaurus into that mix. I think you could do a lot of very different stuff. No offense to the Young Bucks or FTR. I've seen Young Bucks, Hardys a bunch of times. They ran that match back several times in the ROH days. FTR would be interesting. It'd be a different kind of match for them, but dude, I'm with you, man. Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, they got such great chemistry right now, and the diversity you're going to be able to bring to that bout with a big man like Lucha, I just think it'd be awesome. So anyway, hey, Dean, I want to thank you so much for joining us here today. Very different kind of show. Everybody knows how much I pride myself on my production here. Sorry I had to throw this up here in a hotel room. I'm very happy to tell you, Dean, it looks like I did fix the audio stuff very, very early in the program. So everybody, I think, got to hear us here today and enjoy this punditry, and I definitely want to bring you back, man. I really, really enjoyed chatting with you here today. And for everybody else, man, come on back tomorrow. It's going to be me. It's going to be Brian Wool. We're going to play you the audio from CM Punk's AEW Revolution media scrum, where he literally breaks down in tears talking about the match he had against MJF at Revolution. Of course, if you like the Wrestling Inc. Daily, support us on whatever podcast platform you like. SupportWrestlingInc.com. We're on all the socials and as well and come back here tonight after WWE NXT to catch the Wrestling Inc. podcast, which is a lot like this show, but it's at night and it's got different people. Dean, anything that you want to put over here before we wrap up the show today?
No, just thanks for having me on. This was great. Had a great time with it, and just telling everybody listening, get hyped, baby. We're working on the comeback. Got to get Mojo back in the ring.
I agree with that. And I'm at Nick_Hausman over on Twitter. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And remember, if you winked, you didn't.